Carol is 27, standing in a rented bathroom in Dayton, Ohio, 1959, before a Monday shift. On the shelf, a roll-on deodorant bottle, a bar of Lifebuoy soap, a bottle of Listerine, and a box hidden behind the towels. None of it is decoration. Every bottle is a test, tied to marriage, to tips, to paychecks. Number 1 shows the one hygiene rule that was never really about being clean. Number 12, the bath that became a deadline. Carol runs the tap before bed even when she is too tired to stand in it. A generation earlier, a bath once a week on Saturday night was enough. Indoor plumbing changed that, and so did the advertising that followed it. By the late 1950s, a nightly bath was not a comfort. It was an expectation. Skip it, and neighbors noticed. Co-workers noticed. The pipe clanks, steam fogs the little mirror over the sink, and Carol climbs in anyway. The tub was never just about getting clean. It was about staying ahead of a rule nobody had to say out loud. The bottle on the shelf next to the soap was where the real rule started. Number 11, the bottle that decided if she could be trusted. Before she is dressed, Carol rolls on deodorant, cool ball against skin, and slips a spare bottle into her handbag. That habit did not start with her. In 1919, an ad campaign for a product called Odo Rono gave a private, ordinary thing a public name, B.O. By the post-war years, close to 90% of American women use deodorant regularly, far more than the men around them. Nobody had to explain why. Everyone already knew. A woman who was talked about for the wrong reason, lost invitations, lost friends, lost a seat at the lunch table. The bottle protected her reputation. The next bottle, right beside it, protected something she was not supposed to mention at all. Number 10. The rinse marketed as a marriage test. Carol gargles Listerine before she leaves the apartment, capping the bottle with the same 2 fingers every morning. For decades, Lambert Pharmaceutical ran an ad campaign built around a woman named Edna, later Eleanor, who charmed every man she met and married, none of them. The word the ads used was halitosis, and it sounded medical enough to be terrifying. Between 1,922 and 1,929, the company's revenue rose from about $115,000 to more than $8 million. That was not a coincidence. That was fear, bottled and sold by the ounce. A woman's breath became evidence against her marriage prospects. What Carol hid behind the towels, she was not allowed to mention at all. Number 9. The box behind the towels. Before her landlady knocks, Carol pushes a small folded box to the back of the shelf. Sanitary product advertising of the period, from brands like Kotex and Modesty, was built entirely around discretion, euphemism, and silence packaging, designed to be spoken about in a whisper, if it was spoken about at all. Etiquette columns reinforced the same rule. A normal, monthly fact of a woman's body was something to conceal even from her own family. There was no real vocabulary for questions, so most women simply learned the hiding instead, passed quietly from mother to daughter like an instruction nobody wanted to say aloud. The paper box makes a small rustle as it disappears behind the towels, and Carol never once thinks to ask why it has to hide there at all. Hiding it was private. The next bottle on that same shelf was marketed as something else entirely, a woman's job to save her own marriage. Number 8. The douche sold as marriage insurance. Behind the towels, next to the hidden box, sits a bottle labeled for feminine hygiene, and Carol read the same magazine ad her mother once read. From the 1920s, well into the 1960s, Lysol ran a campaign historian Andrea Tone has traced back to Comstock-era obscenity laws, which made honest contraceptive advertising illegal. So the company used a euphemism instead, and sold douching as the secret to a happy marriage, blaming wives directly if a husband's attention wandered. The medicinal smell lingers in the small, tiled bathroom long after Carol rinses the sink. That bottle promised to save a marriage most women were doing everything to hold together already. The next rule did not wait for her at home. It was standing at her office door. Number 7. The smell check before the shift. Carol straightens her collar before she clocks in at a downtown office, under fluorescent light that hums louder than it should this early. Nobody hands her a memo about it. There does not need to be one. In many offices of the period, personal scent and grooming were treated as part of the job itself. Judged in a glance a supervisor never had to explain. A woman labeled not particular lost the good desk, the better shift, the next promotion, without anyone writing a single reason down. So far, Every rule in this list lived in Carol's bathroom cabinet and her handbag private, hers to manage, hers alone to fail at. What came next did not happen in a mirror. Until now, the rules belonged to Carol's own hands. What came next belonged to other people's paperwork. A scale, a supervisor's office, a form that needed someone else's signature. Number 6, the weigh-in that decided a career. A friend of Carol's works an airline counter and dreads Monday mornings when she steps onto a scale in front of a supervisor with a clipboard. In the 1950s and 60s, airlines like United and TWA built weight limits directly into hiring paperwork. One 1,968 posting capped a stewardess at 135 pounds for her height, alongside girdle checks and inspections of smooth, bare legs. Missed the number, and the consequence was not a warning. It was suspension without pay, sometimes a diet plan handed down like an order, sometimes dismissal outright. The scale did not care how well she poured coffee down a narrow aisle at 30,000 feet. It did not measure skill at all. It measured whether she still fit the picture on the recruiting poster. The next rule did not care whether she was clean. It only cared whether she was married. Number 5. The ring that ended the job. Carol's coworker slides her engagement ring off before her shift and drops it into a coin purse at the bottom of her desk drawer. Airlines in this era commonly required stewardesses to be single, and researchers studying labor history, including economist Claudia Golden's work on so-called marriage bars, have documented the same pattern reaching into teaching and clerical work. Get married. And in many companies, the job ended that week, regardless of seniority or skill. Pregnancy made the rule even less forgiving. In several carriers, a stewardess who became pregnant was expected to resign immediately, no notice required. The ring is small. The purse closes with a soft click. The consequence, for the woman who wore it on the wrong hand at the wrong desk, was never small at all. Number 4. The form that needed a man's signature. Carol sits across from a bank clerk, pen in hand, trying to open a small savings account with money she earned herself. Before the Equal Credit Opportunity Act passed in 1974, it was common practice at many banks for a woman's application to require a husband's or a male relative's signature before credit would be extended, no matter what her own paycheck showed. The clerk's smile stays polite. The answer does not change. Carol folds the form and puts it back in her handbag beside the ring case her coworker hides at work. The form looked like ordinary paperwork. It was a verdict on how much her own name was worth on paper. The next rule followed her. Somewhere hygiene should have mattered most of all inside a hospital. Number 3. The uniform that was inspected, not worn. Carol's sister trained as a nurse, and every morning before her shift, a head nurse checked her uniform the way an officer checks a soldier collar: hem, the crisp fold of a cap, the shine on her shoes. Hospital hierarchies of the period treated a nurse's appearance as proof of her discipline, her obedience, and her fitness to be trusted near a patient, far beyond any question of actual cleanliness. A wrinkle earned a reprimand. A stain earned a docked wage and a note in a file that followed her for years. Starched fabric snaps stiff, with every step down a floor polished so hard it squeaks. This is where hygiene stopped belonging to the body and started belonging to whoever held the clipboard. What came next reached even further than a hospital ward. Number 2. The morality clause, hidden in the contract. Carol's neighbor teaches at the local school, and every year she signs a renewal contract without reading every line, the way most people sign something they have signed before. Buried in many teaching contracts of the period were morality clauses, tying a woman's continued employment to her appearance, her marital status, and her conduct outside of school hours entirely, enforced by school boards answering to parents who were always watching. Everything up to this point had a workaround, if a woman was careful, quiet, and lucky. A morality clause did not care how careful she had been, or how many years she had already given the same classroom. Chalk dust settles on a desk, while a fountain pen scratches a signature line that could be used against her a year later, for reasons that were never written down anywhere she could read them. Number 1. The rule that made all the others make sense. Carol stands at her bathroom mirror again, same shelf, same bottles, same box behind the towels, and none of them looked the same anymore. Across every number on this list, the bottle, the rinse, the box, the douche, the office glance, the scale, the ring, the bank form, the uniform, the contract one pattern never changed. Hygiene, for a woman in this era, was never really about germs. It was a stand-in for something bigger. Whether she could be trusted, whether she was marriageable, whether she followed rules quietly enough to be left alone, nobody had to enforce most of it directly, because the system did not need an enforcer. It needed her to enforce it on herself, every single morning, before breakfast, before work, before anyone else was even awake to check. That was the real rule underneath every other rule on this list. She was expected to police her own body so completely that nobody else ever had to raise their voice. The mirror never explained that part. It never had to. Everyone already knew. Carol is at that same mirror, same shelf, same bottle, same box behind the towels. Nothing changed. What changed is how you see it now. Written rules ended. Unwritten ones lasted longer, because no one had to defend them. If you remember a bottle like hers, a box behind the towels, or a rule no one explained, tell us below. Subscribe, and come with us to the next forgotten rule.